Welcome to my podcast. This is Isaac. I want to call the title of this podcast SA Music Scenario versus Overseas Music Opportunities. I'm talking as a South African and I'm hoping I could shed some light on opportunities overseas. This is after the release of Summer Blue album, which I released in April the 14th, 2017. And this was a project that took about 17 years to complete due to challenges that we face as artists, producers, and musicians. But obviously there was a goal and a mission in place. It's not something that I did haphazardly. It had its own plan. So, to get to the bottom of this podcast, let's divide this podcast into two sections. One, it will be part one, the empathy of the South African music scenario as against the wealth creation for the local musicians, artists, producers, and DJs. And then part two, I'm going to be talking about alternatives for the people I've just mentioned. Alternatives meaning if you are not making it locally, then why don't you try opportunities outside the borders of South Africa? That would be an option for common sense people. So that would be part two. So part one, I'm going to be looking at the copyright protection. In South Africa, it is very poor and ill-defined for the local artist or even the producers or musicians, including sound engineers. Secondly, the music total ownership and control. I'm talking about the rights. There's two types of rights: the copyrights and the sound rights, or the engineering rights, sound engineering rights. And then there's the distribution outlets and limited business and buyer support. Obviously, that will include or incorporate local piracy of our music by African countries. And then there's no dedicated talk show. Talk show means a specific niche show about local music and marketing, except obviously for those who've gone to universities to study music. They probably studied the theory and the music aspect of music and not the business part of music. So in this case, I'm not talking about the production of music. I'm talking about the business part of music. And then lastly, on part one, I'm looking at the bad record deals and no overseas exposure by the local music labels. And then lastly, what is the way forward? Okay, let us look at the copyright. There's a Copyright Act of 1977. This is an international copyright act which protects a musician's works. This could be the production of music, the writing of lyrics, words, music, and sound. It is prevalent against violation of the music owner, where if you are to use it for any purpose, whether it is business, advertising, score sheet, film score, or art or theater, or for any other reason, you have to secure the permission to use it for that purpose. Obviously, it is good for filmmakers, for advertising companies, for jingles, radio jingles, to use your track, soundtrack. It generates revenue. It is good for business. So about copyright protection, people will tell you about SEMRO. I am not sure if I really have confidence in their credibility in terms of protecting us internationally. Maybe locally they are doing their job, but I'm not sure if I really trust them with my works. Then the ownership means if I write the music, I write the lyrics, I compose the song, I engineer everything from A to Z. I have total control. It means I can put any price tag for any buyer. The buyer could be anybody. It could be another artist Let's say, for example, I put up together a rock song, and then Def Leppard says, look, we want to do a cover album, but we like the song. Or a music supervisor for a film, The Fast and Furious as an example, say, look, we want to buy you out on this song. How much would it cost you? So I have an option to either sell it in rands, or to sell it in pounds, or to sell it in dollars. But I'm talking about the big picture here. This podcast is not focusing on local content or local material only, but I'm looking at the big picture, the overall potential for the music to be exploited in all types of media, including games, Xboxes, including TV shows, including TV episodes, you name it, the spectrum is covered. So we don't have those rights or distribution outlets in South Africa. If they are quite limited, considering the population of music buyers. South Africa has got a population of about 50 million people. Out of those 50 million people, if you take out the component of people who are working, let's say, I'm just throwing figures from the top of my head. Obviously, these figures are more reliable. If you go to Statistics South Africa, you'll get the correct figures. I'm just playing around with the numbers to give you an idea of what it is that I'm talking about. If, let's say, out of 50,000 people, 50 million people who are South Africans are employed and are working, are earning a living, and they can buy your CD or your product or your download. And that population of buyers, not every one of them will actually like your song. So I'm talking about people, a niche buyer. I'm talking about, if you take 50 million people, and people who are employed, it's about 10% of 50 million will give you 5 million. So out of that 5 million, we're looking at people who are actually buying your music. Not every one of the 50 million people will actually like your music. So you're talking about 5 million people. Out of that 5 million people, let's say 2%. 2% of that 50 million would be your target sales, if that is the case. So you're looking at about 2% would be 100,000, depending on how much you're going to be selling your CD or your album or your records. 100,000 people, they call it platinum. But if you were to compare these figures with overseas markets, let's talk between, I would like to make a comparison between the British population music buyers as well as the USA. But let's talk USA. The population in USA, we're talking about 220 million people. Out of 220 million people, we must take into consideration that America is the home turf of music, arts, drama, filmmaking. So chances are you have a population of about more than 60%, right? 60% of 250 million, 220. You're talking about 1.5 million. But then you want to just sell 2%. Okay, you want to sell 2%. What is 2% of 150? It's about 3 million. This is what, if you compare 100,000 copies and 3 million copies, what would you choose? And this 3 million, I'm not talking about rands, I'm talking about dollars. So if you were to convert $3 million into rands, you are talking about 13.012 a dollar. You're talking about 39 million rands for just maybe one album or one song. I don't know. I mean, obviously we have to delve deep into the numbers to actually make this thing understandable. So that is the distribution outlet internationally is much better than local. And then dedicated radio talk shows are the foundation to build careers for local music talent scouting as well as marketing, to create an awareness of local talent, but also to be able to tap into overseas market using this as a platform, a channel that would actually sell, like the Brand South Africa campaigns. You would say Brand South Africa musicians. I mean, people like Black Coffee made a good break to go overseas, but there has to be continuity. It shouldn't be once off. Then identifying we need to find record labels that are going to focus on the international market. Like, for example, right now, Lyra is touring the United States, which is a good thing. But Lyra is one in the drop of the ocean compared to so many artists that we have here. So, again, in summary, if you look at the local population of buyers, 100,000, if your target market is 100,000, I think it's like taking breadcrumbs from the table, leftovers from the dinner of people who are the industry um, byrons in this country. So I'll definitely move away from even looking into that market. It's not only a waste of time, it's an insult to the integrity of our creativity. And then I would hasten to say, why don't we just go back to the drawing board? And this is where Summer Blue came into effect. Summer Blue was formulated more than 2001 to purely focus on not only on the strategy to tap into the overseas market, but also to build a repertoire of good music, with the intention, obviously, to try and promote local artists via cover albums. And when we talk about production, we're talking about, I'm not talking about music beats, but I'm talking about good quality music. That's one section of the music that has been taken care of. That is why the release of Blue Jay album was successful on the 14th of April. So there's one component. The other component is lyric writing, or writing lyrics. Summer Blue was able to participate in international songwriting competitions. So we have credibility in terms of writing professional lyrics, because we won the 2005 Song of the Year music competition. Obviously, entering competitions, it's expensive. You have to pay to participate in those competitions. So having said that, the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I was on Facebook, and there was a music festival that is taking place in Sebokeng on the 30th of April of this month. And when I was interested to find this jazz music festival, because it's something that is very rare. It seems like we don't have enough jazz music festivals, or jazz musicians for that matter. And our production with Summer Blue actually promotes both jazz, rock, and contemporary music. So if you want to participate, I'm also trying to promote our local artists. So there's a Sebokeng Jazz Festival that is taking place. If you are interested, you can go to Facebook and search for Sebokeng Jazz Music Festival. But I want to make a shout out to Aldrich. I think he's the one who inspired me to make this podcast. Thank you very much. I'll play one of Summer Blues music so that you can follow it up on Apple or iTunes Music or Deezer or Amazon. Thanks very much for listening. Cheers. That is Summer Blue, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of our productions. Blue Jay, the cover, Once in a Lifetime Rock. This track you'll find on Amazon, Apple, and iTunes. Please support local music, and thanks for listening. Thank you very much. Have a good day.